So welcome everyone. This is Parent Information Night for Educational Technology Department, and we're here to present to you a little bit about AI in education, and we also want to touch on topics of Chromebook care and preparing for CAASPP testing. So a lot of ed tech topics rolled into one. We're going to be spending the majority of the evening talking to you about AI. And then we will have, as I said, plenty of time for Q&A. So we want to introduce you to the team. I'm Janae Enna, and I'm the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment here in Educational Services.
I'm Steve Harmon. I'm one of the ed tech specialists, particularly I work with the Burnell learning community.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Bruce Neff. I'm an ed tech specialist as well, serving the Davis learning community.
Hello, my name is Sergio Rizzi. I'm an ed tech specialist as well. I support the Herman learning community. So tonight what we are going to be working on is to make sure that everybody here on the meet is familiar with the current and future status of AI in education. We're going to provide some recommendations on Chromebook care, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the CAASPP state testing, what that entails. We'll be providing tips, strategies, and we'll make sure that we have some suggestions on how to develop conditions at home to facilitate students preparing for state testing. Our first topic being AI in education, what I'd like to do first is talk a little bit about Oak Grove School District and the 3-year plan that we have. So this school year right now, we're working on understanding AI and the implications it has in education. We're researching different privacy and legal regulations, looking into best practices that surround this in the educational setting, and formulating state principles concerning AI in education. Next year, what we'll be doing is we'll be introducing AI to staff in the classroom. And so what that means is we're going to have like pilot and demo products that teachers can test out with their students on how to incorporate AI in education to help meet the district's goals. And then we'll also start providing staff with more professional development opportunities to introduce them into what AI looks like at that given time. We know that things are changing so fast with this topic and how hot of a topic it is, that we know that taking baby steps to understand what things look like at the given time will better assist the teachers in their development of how to use this effectively. And then in the 3rd year of this, in the 25-26 school year, hopefully by then we would have a pretty good understanding of what products seem to work best and do best with the students and the teachers. And then we'll start rolling this out with better professional development, better access to the tools, more of a stable district-wide approach, aside from those small pilot pockets that we'll be testing in the previous year. And then also take advantage of the time to include community for more information like we're doing tonight, and then to give more feedback for anybody else that's interested in helping us grow with that mindset that we have of AI in education. So the things that we'll be looking at next are developing board policies to reach out to vendors for student data privacy compliance, and then continue to educate the community like we're doing this evening, and to explore options for more stakeholder and focus groups. In the next few slides, we'll be providing some background to AI in education, what it looks like now, as well as some tools, risks, advantages that AI currently is offering.
Right. Thank you, Sergio. So just wanted to share a little bit. You, depending on your level of knowledge and experience, maybe have heard about AI being used in classrooms, maybe with teachers, maybe you've heard about kids cheating because they're having AI write their papers. You've maybe heard about positive ways that students are using AI. Maybe you're using AI yourself. Believe it or not, we've all been using tools that use AI for a pretty long time. So if you search for anything on Google, there's the predictive search. And Gmail has the smart replies, like it can predict what you want to write. Your Amazon, social media, your feed relevance, your feed, like the ads that get dropped, the algorithms, all that is based in AI. If you have Alexa, at home, or if you have Google Home, all those smart devices have AI components in them. So, you know, sometimes people think about AI and they think, oh, it's like, this is creepy. What's happening? Kids aren't going to have to think anymore. Machines are taking over. But really, there are lots of different applications for AI. And so we want to just share a little bit about that with you here. One thing that is important to note is that it sort of became really well known when ChatGPT dropped. And in 2022, at the end of the year, ChatGPT sort of exploded. And within 2 months, it gained 100 million users. So ChatGPT is the open AI tool that like I said, came out in 2022, or it became widely used. And this graph shows you many other applications and how long it took them to get to 100 million users. For example, Netflix, it took 10 years for them to get to 100 million users. Twitter, it took 5 years. Instagram, it took 2.5 years. What's not shown on this graph is what beat out ChatGPT, and that was Threads, which is a spinoff of kind of like Twitter. It's a spinoff of Instagram, and it's another social media tool, but it actually got to 100 million users more quickly than ChatGPT. But it is something that just really caught fire, and anyone can access it. And we're not using it in the classroom. We'll talk about that. We're not using it here, but we want you to know about it so that you can help your children and guide them to using tools like that safely and effectively. So when we're, you know, as I said, we've been using AI for a long time, and what ChatGPT and other tools are is generative AI. So this is sort of a graphic that shows, you know, generative AI can write things, right? It can write papers for students. It can write songs. It can design and create art, and you know, analyze customer behaviors. It can, there's a lot of, create content. A lot of folks are using it for content creation. There's many, many uses, and generative AI, something important to note is that it is, you know, there's it predicts based on trained data, but it's not all knowing. So sometimes you can put into ChatGPT, for example, ask it to do a difficult math equation, solve a math equation, but it won't necessarily be correct. And that's just because it's predicting, it's not all knowing. And so because of that, AI can have what they call hallucinations. It can share with you what it believes to be true, but it's not actually the correct answer. It's not actually reality. So important for everyone to realize that just because ChatGPT or just because an AI tool came up with it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth. And there is bias in AI because it's trained data. So just like with humans, there's bias and like I said, incorrect information. So with those kinds of background information and things in mind, we're going to talk a little bit more about what AI tools are available for teachers and students and what uses might be for them. I'll pass it over to Bruce.
Yeah. So so that there are definitely a lot of tools. Like I said, I think I actually switched the slider. I'm going to check something here. I had a slide. Oh, maybe it's not here. I'll swap it. So there's definitely a vast amount of changes. Like I said, we're about 1.5 years into what we call generative AI coming, kind of being well known. And again, the reason to build upon why it became so popular and suddenly it's everywhere is this is kind of that first opportunity. It was so easy to use and interface with. A lot of times AI, we were utilizing it, but we didn't really realize we're utilizing it. Like I watch Netflix a lot of times and they get those recommendations, kind of like as Janae was saying, like, hey, what did you watch? What's your watch list? But we just didn't really realize what necessarily was happening. Whereas here, we were actually interacting with this thing, and it was easy because it was built on just something that was simple to use, which is just language, right? And what it was putting out wasn't just simple things like when you are doing your email or you're writing your text and it gives you suggestion for the next word or maybe even next 2 words. This is actually generating pages upon pages of text that's very realistic. And in fact, a lot of times works very well. Some errors that are in play and some biases that are some of our concerns. So this has been picked up in many places. In fact, I think it was as of around December, there were over 60,000 companies that are working on their product is some sort of AI component. There are thousands upon thousands of tools that can be utilized in all forms of industry throughout the world. And in education, it's definitely becoming a big thing. I think you see it more often in higher education because of the privacy issues and concerns. Colleges, I see it a lot, some high school, and us being a K-8 district, we definitely have to approach it due to students, privacy and things of that nature. We have to be very cautious. Our teachers are aware of it, and we're also very aware that the students these days are also using this perhaps on their own. I think high school, there was a recent poll that 60% of students are using some sort of AI with writing. Now, how they're using it may or may not. It depends, right? So I think our big approach now was, as Sergio had mentioned earlier, is us understanding it thoroughly, educating our staff and perhaps our community, as with this meeting tonight, about its use, and exploring some options. So some of the tools that you could see here are a few things that we've kind of worked with specifically either with the vendors, the companies as they were starting this up. So we have a good understanding of how these tools are used. And we have some awareness that some teachers may be using it on their personal level, not with the students per se, but to help inform them, because it does have benefits that will assist students with, or teachers with the students, a lot of advantages. And some of these are representative of what some of those things may do. So these are, again, just a very, very small tip of the iceberg, even just within the educational setting where AI would be used. But I can give you an example of some themes that you might see here. So some of those I'll be covering here. Chat for Schools by Skillstruck, Ethically Chat, PDF, Diffit, Magic School, and Conmigo by Khan Academy. So the first one I mentioned here is Chat for Schools by Skillstruck. We actually met with this vendor early on in this process, and I've been working closely with them. And one of the things that I really that drew us to them is one of the things with ChatGPT, when it first launched 3.5, 4.0, now you've got Gemini, a lot of these things are they're open systems where you have to opt into this and you're feeding it information that it now has it's out in the world. So with education, we have to be very, very careful with that because that personal information is protected. So this is a company that actually out of the gate, it's in fact one of the only ones now that has actually signed the National Data Privacy Agreement with us, which basically says that they're committed to ensuring that they're following all the laws both throughout the nation federally and through the state of California to ensure that they're protecting the data. So the way they do this is they have a closed system where what that means is as you're feeding the model that gives you the output, it contains that rather than reaching out to the bigger learning language models to allow that potentially private information to go out into that space. So that makes it more confident that it will stay within. It is a tool that's utilized by teachers. It can also be used by students, and they kind of can work together. That has a variety of tools. It's all powered predominantly by ChatGPT 3.5. You can actually leverage the more current model 4.0, but a lot of the systems they use is 3.5. One of the things I really like about it's kind of cool is you can create these custom tutors, and that's a big advantage in general that educators use with AI. Is you kind of create these tutors, which creates this opportunity where a child or student can engage with somebody when the teacher's maybe not available. Because, hey, maybe they're up in the middle of the night and they're trying to work on that homework assignment or the writing assignment, and they can actually coordinate with this tutor that's available literally as long as they have access to their device, and they can engage with the process of writing, for example. And these tutors can be customized in a way that has a certain tone, like maybe it's a Taylor Swift type tone and things of that nature, or perhaps it's a tutor that's specific for science, or it's like an Einstein kind of thing, or any characters that may engage with the students as well. It also has good multi-language supports, so it covers a variety of languages, as many of these others will do as well. But this one works very seamlessly, where a student perhaps in their native language can engage with this AI, and it will correspond with them in their home language, which is really nice. It differentiates well, has some accessibility options and things of that nature, which we also like. So generates quizzes, writing assignments. It helps teachers with that. It helps teachers with lesson planning. You'll see that theme a lot, since a lot of these tools are geared towards time-saving strategies as well, where teachers can generate some things and get some ideas for generating lessons and remixing assignments. That's a big thing. When myself being a teacher in 4th grade, taught a broad range of age groups, maybe 4th grade, but I'm having to work with kiddos that maybe are perhaps at a reading level. There are multiple grades below, and some that were literally in 12th grade reading. And I can remix using something like this tool to help me quickly spin off my main content in different directions to differentiate and support those kids. So that's SkillStruck. Another example here is Ethically. This is more focused a lot towards writing. This one's kind of cool because it definitely works with the teacher and the student mind working together on the same, what I'll call, platform or window. And it's very focused on writing in that process. So as students are working on their writing, again, it kind of uses a tutor-based model where the student is engaging, they're getting writing, but it definitely doesn't like simply write papers for you, as is the theme with a lot of these educational related AI tools. It's not like what you see with just simply like getting on ChatGPT and open AI. You can't just put in a prompt and it spits out the paper. This is not that. It's more of like in a tutor setting. If you ever had your child have a tutor, you don't just give them the answer. You're going to kind of nudge them along and point them in a direction and have them come up with brainstorming ideas to help them out. And again, always available. It's a big thing. The way this benefits teachers is that it can kind of go through and give that first screening. I remember when I did writing assignments with my kids and doing with missions and things like that, I had checkpoints, but I would have to check every one of those assignments. And then I would have these benchmarks where I'd be grading them to make sure that they were on task. The nice thing about this is that it kind of keeps up with that for them, gives them some basic support, but the teacher sees that and it can flag the teacher to notify them when they need additional support. Perhaps they're falling behind and things of that nature. So this is a place where both the teacher and the student can go jointly with support of this AI to kind of help each other with that. So the teachers can spend a little bit more time individually with that student when they're in their classroom. So that's basically how Ethically works. Another example that we kind of like, Chat PDF. This one's interesting because you can bring content in any type of PDF and just drop it into the AI, and it can do a variety of things with it. One thing is that I saw stronger use cases, maybe in definitely in like upper grades, where if you have a lot of content and you're trying to create notes of some sort or giving like self exams, like kids could basically put elements in there and then generate their own quizzes for themselves to kind of ask them their own questions. It's good for organization of things. If you have a big, a lot of information, you need to kind of parse it down for a little brain, cramming session, maybe the night before, it helps you out with things of that nature. Again, it's been around for a while. This is freely available on the internet right now, and its focus or target is a broader audience. So you'll kind of see, like, for professionals, contracts and financial reports. So it does a lot of that. Still, the backside is leveraging should be ChatGPT 3.5. But its big strength here is just organizing large data sets and allowing you to kind of like find out or analyze things with that. There's also talk about source citation, and again, as usual, works with any language as well. Let's see here. Then we have Diffit. I really like this one, and the reason why I like this is my wife, she actually teaches the ELD program over at Herman Intermediate, and one of the struggles that she's had this year is she has a classroom in her beginner's class where she has 5 different languages. And so that's very challenging for my wife, especially since she excellent speaking English, Spanish, very, very little. So she has to, on the nightly, I see her investing a lot of time having to create these these lessons, but then being able to translate them into all the languages so that they're accessible to even just the 5 different languages in her classroom. And one thing that's really nice about DFIT, not only does it help in regards of translations for those things, but it also does do sort of that leveled, gives you that leveled approach of differentiation. They can differentiate for different levels of the students and generate some vocabulary, quick check questions. It also does give you some prompts that help you to start to assist the teacher and how to change that so that it works for them. And it's and another thing that this one does a little bit differently is it does bring it back in, connecting it back into a variety of these platforms very easily with tools that teachers use as well, that they can use. So yeah, it works really well. Very simple. This is available right now online, and teachers are using it quite often. All right. A third one, this one here, Magic School. This is, I kind of would treat this a little bit more of kind of like a warehouse sort of. It's not just a single platform. It actually has multiple, over 60 plus AI tools that are specifically focused towards the educational environment. If somebody were just to ask me as I was walking down the street, if there was one place just to kind of dive in to take a look at what this is all about and they didn't know, Magic School is a really good place to start because it covers a good broad range of things. It is focused, this Magic School is focused on the teachers. They did just recently release something that is for students. I don't have experience exactly what they've done with that just yet, but the intent of this one is for the teachers to go in there and use the variety of tools, very similar to some that I've explained in the past, but just various tools they bring into this one space. Nice thing about this is that it integrates well. It's interoperable with Google, and our district is definitely into Google. That's why all the kiddos have the Chromebooks. You see teachers using Google Classroom and things of that nature. So that just kind of seamlessly ties together and makes it easier to bring this into that space as needed for like maybe some lesson planning, or if they want to generate some assessments based off of these tools. It works very easily to go into there. Also has that text levelers. It has the being able to analyze some of the tests or the questions that the students responded with and things like that. They do have their own personal commitments to privacy with schools in mind for POCOPA compliant, things of that nature. However, we haven't had the opportunity yet to reach out to them to get them to what we like is the gold standard and having them sign on with the National Data Privacy Agreement. But again, Magic School is really, really good. If there was just one suggestion of a place to trying to test the waters, got a lot of different resources that are great there. And then the final one I would like to cover today, and again, there are thousands of them out there. I'll just kind of give you a sampling of things that are out there, what they do. Khan Go by Khan Academy. The reason why I like to bring this one up is because Khan Academy has been around for a very long time. It is an educational environment. It's pretty much kind of a household name that, you know, it's something that was kind of revolutionizing education where, you know, Sal Khan came along and he said, how am I going to help out I think it was his niece that was across the nation with the math homework, and basically started creating YouTube videos and short little lessons on how to do things. So very popular guy. They actually began this journey before, well before, over a year and a half ago. Back, I think they were on board almost a year prior to this big thing of generative generative AI kind of launching with 3.5. They work closely with OpenAI, and they worked on this model before. It's got a lot of background to it. It is, again, a very much closed system. This one, the current model, is actually using ChatGPT-4. And what that is it's a much larger model. It could bring in graphics and things of that nature, and much more powerful, but comes with a bit of a cost as well. Its main function, or its big strength, it is a personalized tutor. This is where, and that's really just in general what I see the benefit of AI in the classroom is kind of having that, as being a teacher, having that teacher's aide that already knows what it is you need them to do, because you can actually build them out in a way that you want them to behave to cover the standards you want, even have the tone or the comedic voice or whatever. It's really cool what some of these things can do, and it will assist. And again, the key thing with many of these products that we feel are more appropriate or are hoping to use in the future is that they're not just simply put in a question, give me the answer. That's not the purpose here. It's actually a tutor that is thoughtful and it guides them along. And in a closed system, it has the benefit. Khan Academy claims this is kind of one of their big things, is begins to understand the user through the conversations it may generate with that person, and they get to know a little bit about them. So they may ask and phrase questions that are related to personal preferences, things that they like. If they're into soccer, and it will start asking questions about soccer and things like that. So it's really interesting how it can kind of learn about them and customize that interaction with them. Another thing that this does is it will it gives it interesting analytics. It's probably too small for you to see on that screen, but when you're doing these little assessments that are kind of built into this system, it does give really good job of snapshotting some what we call analytics with teachers, and they take some actionable items and quickly just and it gives little prompts at the bottom saying like, hey, what are the group of kids that may need to reteach on this subject? And based on this system, it actually goes in, it can pull that data quickly within it and assist the teacher, which saves them time with some of that stuff instead of going to all these things and researching themselves to figure it out. That's what these types of things can do. So I'm really excited about that. Another thing that Conmigo will do is it has an interaction where it can inform parents. So maybe the child is interacting with this particular AI and having some discussions around things, and it might flag some things, and you can actually have it set up as a parent's piece of the component, or it may give you flags or alerts about things, which may be of a benefit to the parents as well. So those are all really some interesting things that I like about it. So we're about to move on to, well, this is maybe I did have a slide where I was bulleting all the key things. I'm going to leave this back to Steve, but in closing, before I pass this off really quickly, I did have a deck where I wanted just the general benefits that I like with AI that they do, that I'm really excited about in general for education, for the educational environment. And some of those things is they really do provide a personalized instruction for kiddos when maybe the teachers just don't have the time to, especially like high school or middle school. You're seeing 170 kids. You know that somebody can be there perhaps 24/7 for them. The way they can be built, increasing motivation, engagement for kiddos, I see a lot of potential there. The data analysis, quick feedback with teachers can help. Adaptive learning models, kids that maybe have dyslexia, they have things in there to change fonts so they can see it. Kids with special needs, how it can do that. Saves time for teachers, repetitive, simple tasks, they can assist with that. And again, especially with second language learners, the potential of being able to use that to assist them so that they can have a more equitable experience. So with that, I'll pass it off to Steve.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. So we know that some families and students are already utilizing some of these AI tools. And so we just want to talk a little bit about some of the risks and some of the do's and don'ts with that. So if you are using it, or if you have your children using generative AI right now, there's some practices to avoid and practices you should use. So let's kind of go through some of those. First, some of the things you should avoid. First is do not give personal information into these systems, especially the open lowercase o AI products. That basically means that they're free to use, right? You can just go to the website and type in a prompt and things like that. And the reason that we don't want to give personal information or have our children give personal information in those products is because those products use whatever prompts are put into them and whatever is generated from those in order to build up their database in the background. So if you're putting personal information into those systems, then that becomes part of the large language model that those systems are using. And so we just want to make sure that it's not, available in there for people to be able to gather information in some way. That's also why we do a lot of work with making sure that these companies are signing the student data privacy agreement before we actually do business with them, because we don't want things like personal information that might find its way into their systems to be used in illegal or unethical ways. Secondly, don't blankly trust the output. This is kind of goes to what like what Janae was saying earlier about hallucinations, and they don't always get things right. They're not designed to vet the information that they have. They're just designed to create a narrative, right? To create a written product. And so if you put in a prompt, it's going to try in any way possible to give you an answer, even if the answer is wrong. And so whenever you do something with that, you always need to make sure that you look at what the output is. Some things you can do, we'll talk about in a second. With the prompts, you could ask for the citations, that type of thing, to see if the output that they're putting out is actually something that is trustworthy. Next, don't use it to do assignments for you or cheat, especially for your children, obviously, right? That's not the purpose of it, right? It's not designed to do the assignments for the kids. If the kids are using it for that, then it's basically they're not doing it for themselves, and that's going to be the biggest benefit of education, is doing it for yourself, right? My college was big on learn by doing, right? So it's a lot of that of doing things yourself in education is going to be the greatest benefit for students. And if they're relying on a computer product to do it, then that's going to be something that's going to be harmful or not helpful for them in their education. Now, hopefully when teachers are using this, and this is something that we'll be training teachers on, there's going to be times and places to use AI. And there's going to be assignments that utilize AI to help the students complete the assignment. And those types of things are things that we want to make sure that they are trained on how to use it accurately and well, so that they can actually benefit their education rather than doing their education for them. Okay. And then some do's, some things that we should do is do use prompts that are clear and detailed. Oftentimes when we first jump on something, we just want to say, oh, I'm going to type this one little sentence or phrase, right, and hope that gives me something that I want. So these products are designed to take a lot of the information from the prompt and design what the output is specifically for that prompt. And so if you're using a prompt that's very detailed, the more detail in the prompt, the better the outcome is going to be. And nice things are you can actually adjust it, that type of thing. So when teachers are utilizing it, for example, they can say something like, I want to create a lesson on, the Gettysburg Address by Lincoln. And I want to make sure that it's accessible for 4th grade students. And I want to have bias removed from this output, something like that. And it will give you information about that or help you create a lesson plan for that. Or for the students, if they're, trying to do research on something, you can have it brainstorm ideas. These are some of the mundane tasks that we sometimes, can utilize as well. So if you're trying to, gather like what are the main, causes of the Civil War, or something along those lines. I'm using a lot of U.S. history ones. I used to teach U.S. history, so that's where all my ideas come from. But so the brainstorming ideas, those types of things. If they're communicating something, sometimes you could utilize AI to rewrite the tone of what that communication is. Or in some of these products that we looked at, you could put in what you've already written, like your essay response to a prompt, and say, does this answer the question, or does this, can you give me feedback on this? What makes sense about this, or what doesn't make sense? Does the how's the writing work? That type of thing, and it can then go in and give feedback on the written items that were put in there. Third do is to practice digital citizenship. And this is something that hopefully your students are learning more about, especially because we're in the world that we're in today with technology everywhere. and using technology in ways that are going to benefit other people or benefit ourselves, and not harm other people. So, for example, one of the things that we said to not do was to not put personal information. Well, that includes the personal information of your best friend as well, right? So students, we don't want them to be using their friends' names or information about their friends or images of their friends, that type of thing. So practicing good digital citizenship where they're utilizing it in a way that is beneficial for others and not harming others, then that's something that they should be doing as well. And then lastly, this is especially important for parents who have children that they're saying, yeah, go ahead and use these products. Make sure that you read the terms of service and the end user agreements before putting your child on these products, because there is, these, like Bruce was saying, right? There's thousands of these products that are out there nowadays, and not all the companies that exist are going to be utilizing the stuff that you put into it in an ethical or in a way that you might be okay with, right? They might be using some of that information that you're putting in there in ways that you would not like. But if you look at the terms of service and the user agreements, that's someplace that you might get a clue about that. Especially if it's saying something like that children under 13 can't utilize their products, that type of thing, because we want to make sure that, they want to make sure that they're following the law. And I know how, tedious it can be to read the terms of service and the end user agreements. Usually we just accept whenever we were faced with those and bypass those. But these, with these AI tools that exist out in the world today, it is probably a good idea to read through those, to take some time to do that. You can probably even use AI tools to shorten it down and get the main points out of it. So, but it's useful to do that so that you understand what's happening with the information that you're putting into those products. Okay. So think that we're going to hold off on Q&A. Is that accurate? Okay, yeah, so we're going to hold off on Q&A until the end, so we have time for all the other topics, and we'll go ahead and move to the next topic, which is Chromebook care.
All right, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just a couple minutes just to remind us of some important things, so we have some time for questions at the end. But generally speaking, yeah, Chromebooks, it's become an essential tool in the classroom, even prior to us doing the whole distance learning thing, at which point it was kind of the only way we could do education. But we're past that, but we still find that in today's education, it is definitely an essential part of kind of our day-to-day learning. So with that in mind, we need to ensure that we're taking good care of them, because they've got to last. So the perspective of the way we kind of want to look at Chromebooks these days is it's kind of like how we had our textbooks. That back 20 years ago when I started this, if you didn't have your textbook, it made it very difficult for us to do things. Chromebooks, to some point, make that even more difficult for kids, because some of the curriculum they're accessing on there. But just more importantly, it enriches a lot of opportunities. So one of the concerns that we found recently over the last couple of years is they are definitely being damaged almost at the point of an unsustainable rate, due to funding resources that we have access to, but that are kind of going, but that's a whole other conversation. It's something that we have to find solutions to. If students are treating them in a way that they are only lasting for a couple years, when we need to have an expectation for them to last for probably the typical window is about 5 years. Google says that some of these can last up to 10 years. We realize that's not going to happen, but our hopes are that they could last for half of that time, maybe 4 years. That's our current plan. But it does require sort of a commitment. So we're actually working with some student council leadership actually this week, doing it tomorrow and next month, to start to just encourage responsible practices with technology and just understand that it is an important tool that we have to respect so that we can utilize it in the classroom setting. And I also wanted just to remind you as the parents that we need to be responsible with the property, and that there are potentially some consequences if it's willful damage. We understand if it's an accident, accidents happen. You know, that's going to be the case. We get that. So we're trying to kind of send that messaging across that we hear stories, horror stories all the time, just intentionally, like, I'm going to pull the keys off, or I'm going to just break it because I don't want to do this or that. But that just definitely makes things difficult. And rather than, you know, maybe a textbook back in the day that was, you know, $60, $70 to replace, these devices are $300, $400 to replace. And that just makes it very challenging. So we just kind of want to reach out. If you wanted to reach out to our department to ask for any tips on what you can do, but just the main things are just, you know, basic common sense. Keep the water and the food away, and protect it when you're transporting it to and from school. Keep it charged. And if you can do that, you'll probably be in pretty good shape. So we appreciate all the support that you guys can do around that.
Thanks, Bruce. So this brings us to our next topic about state testing. State testing does take place on those Chromebooks. So hopefully students in, you know, grades 3 through 8 who are taking the state testing have their Chromebook in good shape and are ready to go. We will be starting our testing window April 22nd through May 31st. Each school site will be communicating their testing schedule for each of the grades and the dates that they'll be doing their state testing. There is a really good website that the CAASPP state testing organization has put out there for families and students to get ready and understand the expectations and what actually takes place during the state test. So the Starting Smarter website, which is viewable here on the slide deck, does provide free educational resources for parents that gives some information about, like I mentioned, what does state testing actually entail. It's going to talk a little bit about how there's different types of tests that your student may come home talking about. It might be talking about taking practice tests or training tests or these interim ICA tests or IAB tests. And what this can look like is not only something that's happening at school, but something that you can be doing at home with your child to help understand what they can be prepared for. So that's the practice test. So if you see here on this little matrix here, the students and parents can use this in like a guest setting, and they can do this at home, or they may be doing it at school. The training test will only be done at school, and that's something that the teacher uses to help facilitate more of an understanding of the mechanics of the test itself, what tools are available, how to increase the, like how to zoom in on things, and how to use some of the rulers and measurement tools that are involved in this on the Chromebook. There's a lot of digital tools that will help them. And this is something that the practice of it will make it a little bit easier to use on the day of the test, because the kids will be more familiar with it. So that's definitely the responsibility of the classroom teacher to help prepare them for the interface portion. And then you can also do additional practice with your child on just some of the practice questions or sample questions available on the practice tests. Once again, practice tests are available on the links here. If your child wants to utilize the Chromebook that they have and they're bringing home with them, if they're logged out of their profile and they see this icon, you'll see in the lower left thumbnail on the screen, you'll see it says like shut down, and then next to it says apps, but you can't see the apps because we already clicked it on the screenshot. When you click on the apps, you'll see a secure test browser. It'll open up something saying, hey, if you want to take the practice test, there's a tool you can do that, click here. Otherwise, utilizing the links that are on the slide deck can also give you a practice test environment without needing to have a Chromebook. And these are all additional resources that are available. Ask your teacher, the principal. You can always email EdTech for further information. Another great resource, if you are maybe new to doing testing this year and you want to learn a little bit more about it with your child. Last year around this time for the Parent Information Night, we covered almost an entire hour on state testing, and that is recorded and available on the Oak Grove School District YouTube channel. So that link is in there to watch that video. The majority of the content is exactly the same this year. So other than maybe some of the screenshots you'll see in that presentation, the information is going to be the same. The date's obviously different because this year's testing window, like we mentioned at the beginning here, opens on the 22nd of April. It doesn't mean that your kids are going to come to school and take the test that day. It just means that's when the district window opens. They may take it that day, but be in touch with your school who'll be communicating their testing schedule. So hopefully this has brought up some information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us for any specifics.
Okay, some of the best practices for the CAASPP testing for parents from home is for them to using some of those practice tests and that type of thing, is to have the students get familiar with the item types and what to expect on the test. The nice thing about using those practice tests is that the experience and what it looks like is going to be very similar as to what they'll see on the actual test. There's also the tools that if they, especially if your child has some special needs and has a plan in place to provide special tools for them, then sometimes it's a good idea for them to get into that test and learn how to utilize some of those tools so that they're not surprised or trying to figure out how to do it during the test itself. Next, know your child's testing schedule. Your school site, your principal should be sending out Parent Square or other school communication about this testing schedule. Take note of that, put on a calendar, put it on the fridge, or whatever it is that you need to do, and keep abreast of that so that you know when your child is going to be having testing. The night before, make sure that your student's Chromebook is charged and plugged in overnight. If it's plugged in for less than an hour, it's going to be fully charged. So they don't take that long to charge up, but it's always good to make sure that's charged before they leave in the morning. Make sure it's functioning correctly as well. Do this like, I'd say at least a week, couple of weeks before. If there's any problems, then the teacher needs to be notified, and so that they can create a ticket for the IT department so that they can come in and make sure that any problems with it are it's functioning so they're ready for the test. Encourage your students to do their best, to build confidence in them. This is stuff that they've been learning all year. And so it's, not going to be something brand new to them or anything. So just, encourage them and say, hey, you got this. Like, you can even include little notes for them before they go to school or something, just to encourage them and build up their confidence and help them to understand that though it's important, it's not everything, right? And they just need to go in there and do their best, and things will work out. The night before, make sure that they get a good night's sleep. Eating a healthy breakfast is also a good thing. Having the brain uses a lot of energy, and so having energy in the body to be able to think well is always a good idea as well. Getting some light exercise in the morning of testing is always useful if that's possible. But yeah, just setting up some type of schedule for them so that they can make sure that they are healthy and ready for those tests is going to go a long way towards helping them to do their best on those tests. Okay, and so if you have any questions about any of these topics, about AI in education, about Chromebook care, about the CAASPP testing, feel free to contact us. You can contact us at the email that's on the screen right now, edtech@ogsd.net. That'll go to all of us, and we'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. And yeah, so if you have any questions, then that's where you could follow up with those as well. We also have a few minutes at the end here for questions, right? And what method we're going to use to do that?
Hi there. Yeah, we can open up the chat. We can let people come on camera, but we were going to end the recording now. So feel free to use your voice if you want to. It won't be recorded and it won't go on YouTube. But we're happy to kind of open it up and engage with you. We thank you so much for being here and participating in all of the information, and would love to hear your questions, comments, and feedback.